Okay, so you'll spend a vast amount of time doing this piece of work over the 8 or 9 months that you're doing a dissertation. And so it's really important to pick a topic that will sustain your interest for that period. So it's got to be something that that you feel is important, or maybe important to you. And it's something that at some point you will get fed up of it, of reading, endless reading about it. So again, it's got to be something that you're going to come back to and want to finish this big piece of work. The key thing was, what was the most important thing in that? And so reading that outline proposal, you start to think, well, actually, this isn't that important, or so on. You find exactly what it is, the hook, the thing that's really interesting to you and really important for what will be your dissertation. Yeah, it's very important that you've got a supervisor that's interested in your work. That will be decided when they assign the supervisor to you. You need to meet 6 times throughout the whole year, I think, as a minimum. But it's advisable to meet more than that if you feel it's necessary, and also to just to make sure you're on the right track. They're there to give you advice. They're there to help you with any problems you've got, and also if you've got ideas that are changing, if you want to change the thesis or the dissertation, or even fundamentally change it, it's worth talking to your supervisor to get that advice about the direction to develop it. And it is useful. Obviously, they've got this wealth of experience and knowledge about the subject that you're researching, so it's good to take on their advice. But if you feel confident about what you're doing, then don't be afraid to challenge what the supervisor is advising. If you think, well, actually, this way is stronger, or there's a stronger argument here, because after all, it's an independent piece of work. It is your dissertation or extended essay. It's your independent research, and so it's like developing sort of confidence in academic work, to be able to challenge what people are saying and say, well, actually, I think this is right, and so you can have that. But also, it's worth bearing in mind that supervisors have got however many decades of experience of doing this, and so their opinion is valuable as well. What I found useful was to make sort of long-term targets for finishing parts of the dissertation, whether it's a literature review or whatever, and also focus on short-term targets, that is essays that are due in this semester, or coursework and that sort of thing. And then on a weekly basis, I would basically block out entire days where I would devote a day to the dissertation part of a chapter, and just with no set times, just that day I'm going to spend working on the dissertation, and then the next day I'll spend working on an essay that's due in 2 weeks or whatever. So thinking ahead can really help, but it is tough in that 3rd year, managing your time when you've got so many different projects, and it all counts for so much, because the 3rd year counts more towards the degree, and so you want to try and get the best marks you can. Yeah, for me, depending on the day, I could be more productive in the morning or afternoon. One of my friends found that he couldn't concentrate during the day at all, and so it would have to be, what he'd do is it would be like 7 or 8 in the evening. He'd go down to the IC, work through the night, and then go home at 6 a.m, go to sleep for the day. But that was the only way he found that he could concentrate. So I guess it's whatever works for the individual person, really. Wherever they feel most productive, then that's the time to work and to work around it. It's worth having deadlines. It's worth having that kind of plan that what chapter 1 or whatever will be finished by November, or at the end of November, or whatever deadlines you set. But I wouldn't worry if you're falling behind them, because it's the nature of this kind of work. Sometimes, you need more time to think about it, or you just can't quite get what you're trying to say down on paper. So having a broad plan can help you manage that time and make it seem less daunting as well, so you know that X amount of work will be completed by this time, and so on. If you find that you're slipping behind on your deadlines quite a lot, then that's the time to speak to a supervisor and find out, get some advice and find out another plan for how to achieve what you want to achieve. Yeah, so when you're approaching the deadline, when you're approaching the final deadline to hand it in, you don't want to be working the night before and then just printing it out in a rush in the morning, trying to get it bound and all that sort of stuff. So it's worth trying to finish a final draft at least a week before the final deadline. That way you can take a break for a couple of days, do something else, and then come back to it and have a look at the references, check the grammar and the spelling, make sure the argument's got a logical flow in each chapter and all that sort of stuff. And it gives you that amount of time to chase up any things that might be wrong and correct them. And then several days before the deadline, get it printed and bound. Because obviously there is that last minute rush when everyone else is trying to get theirs done as well. So it just makes it a more less stressful run up to finishing a piece of work if you can kind of plan to be done ahead of a deadline. Kind of get burnt out when you've got so much work to do, so many different modules as well. But I guess kind of having a bit of variety can actually help in that, if you can kind of put your dissertation just to one side for a week and focus on something else, or take a break, and just not do anything. So pacing yourself is really important in terms of such a big piece of work over such a long amount of time. There are going to be times when you get a bit fed up with it, or maybe lose a bit of drive or even interest in what you're doing. But if you can put it to the side, do something else, and then come back to it with fresh eyes, then it helps to kind of to rekindle your interest in what you're doing. What you really want to be aiming to do is to write more than 15,000 words. Just write as much as you can, as much as you think you want to on the topic, and then edit it down so that what you have is a more concise and focused piece of work. If you're setting yourself deadlines to try and get up to 15,000 words, then you're not likely to write as good a piece of work as one that has been really thought through, critically, considered, is this necessary? Do I need to go into this debate? Maybe not. Edit it down and that sort of thing. Even within sentences, trying to get, if you have a sentence that's got 20 words, can you explain the same thing in 10 words? But can you explain it simpler and more succinctly? And then you'll have a stronger piece of work overall.